Forgive me if I don't do a cartwheel of joy. Your family's record in the Department of Cunning Planning is about as impressive as Stumpy Oleg McNoleg's personal best in the Market Harbour Marathon.
Welcome to episode 13 of the Blackadder podcast, where we're about as impressive as Stumpy Oleg McNoleg. Don't you think?
Yep. Pretty much spot on.
I'm glad you agree.
That's it. Special episode today.
It is a special episode. The Cavalier Years, I believe.
It is. I'm very excited about this one.
Yeah, it's not an episode I've watched many times. You don't see them on TV as often as they...
No, I think this one was a comic relief one, so it would only have really been shown that one time, I would have thought, on television.
Yeah. And then we'll sort of look backs at the Blackadder series as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know much about the Cavalier Years?
Absolutely. This is the thing that I love the most.
Ianapedia?
Yes, I'm going to tell you all about the Cavalier Years.
Well, don't tell us all about it. Tell us a little bit about it.
We'll see how we get on.
Okay, what have you got?
The Cavaliers. That's the key starting point. Those are royalists, supporters of King Charles, initially King Charles I, and they took part in the Civil War in England against the parliamentarians who are more familiarly known as the Roundheads. Principally over the matter of the government of England, whether there should be a monarchy at all. The Roundheads, the parliamentarians, their figurehead, so to speak, was Oliver Cromwell, who of course led the country during the interregnum.
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but if I wanted to hear a spoken word version of Wikipedia, I'd have went to some other source, so I think we should probably crack on with the podcast here. He's rabbiting on a bit, isn't he?
Who would later become King Charles.
Ian.
Jerry.
Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, I was pretty much done with that. I think an hour and 15 minutes is enough English Civil War history for one podcast.
Oof. Where do we begin this week?
Well, I think in the traditional way, we should just... I know it's a short episode, but let's have a summary anyway.
You got one?
I do.
Is it a shortened summary?
Yes.
Crack on.
In the Cavalier Years, Sir Edmund Blackadder is one of the few surviving loyalists, friend and companion to the doomed King Charles I. With the King's execution date approaching, Blackadder takes on a key role in proceedings. But will he have a plan cunning enough to ensure his survival, or does the family line end here?
Thank you, Ian. Are you more of a Cavalier or a Roundhead? Oh, let's not get into politics.
Yeah, better to be safe on these. You never know who's listening.
Yeah. And maybe I'll come out during the discussion here.
No doubt.
We begin in the kitchen. A bearded Blackadder with flowing locks enters and asks for ale from Baldric, who inquires of the king.
Yes, it's a new look for Blackadder. We've not seen anything along these lines
Quite
previously.
fetching.
Absolutely, very dashing, I would say.
Pulls it off.
Yes.
Blackadder tells Baldric that the king is well as well as could be expected, considering he is hiding in a blackberry bush.
He insists that the king will be safe, so long as Baldric keeps his mouth shut.
Ah.
There's been a schoolboy error here. Blackadder warns Baldric that if Oliver Cromwell drops by in the next 90 seconds, the king is not hiding here. Now, this reminded me more than a little of a couple of scenes we've seen previously.
Yes, the first being Potato.
Yes, I can't remember the second one, but there was a couple like this.
The second one would have been Chains?
Possibly. Certainly Baldric was on occasion given information to remember and did not always succeed.
Yeah, so Blackadder had to threaten Baldric with a knife before he leaves, after giving him that warning. Of course, as soon as Blackadder leaves, who should show up?
Well, much to everybody's great surprise, it's Oliver Cromwell himself knocking the door.
Yes, with a guard accompanying him. Now, he addresses Baldric as citizen, which is apt.
Well, that's the world he wants to build, isn't it?
Certainly. They have surrounded the house and are looking for royalist scum. Well, any royal supporting fellows, I would suggest.
Yeah, and the king in particular, who's on the run at this stage.
Baldric does surprisingly well at not revealing the whereabouts of the king at first.
Yes, he's got a dramatic pause in him, but he does say, no, the king is not there, and he's challenged. He's told on pain of death and damnation, is he absolutely sure? And he says he is.
Mm-hmm. I think Cromwell then asks for or demands a cup of tea.
Yeah, he brings his men into the room, and Baldric says they can use any dishes they want, but not the purple cup.
Why not?
It's the king's.
Ah. So we're in the Tower of London 2 weeks later, and Cromwell is shown into King Charles's cell, and he sounds vaguely familiar.
Ah, Mr. Cromwell, how delightful to see you again. Do get up. Tell me, have you come far?
I have, sir. From country squire to Lord Protector of England.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Tell me, what exactly does a Lord Protector do?
He spells your doom, sir.
It spells my doom. Wonderful. Well, that's particularly exciting because so many people these days can't spell at all. Particularly, as you know, in the inner cities, which is my area of interest.
Pretty speak, sir, but all your fine words won't save you from the scaffold.
Jolly good. Fascinating. Carry on.
A priest, sir, to help you make your peace with God before you die.
Ah, hello.
Your Majesty, I can arrange for certain monies to be paid to allow you to escape.
Blackadder! You're dressed as a priest. How dangerous and stupid and perverted. It's just like school.
Sire, this is a matter of life and death.
Nonsense, Blackadder. I don't think there's a jury in England that would bring in a verdict of guilty against me.
Your Majesty, the verdict of the jury.
So, what does it say? Guilty or not guilty?
I'll give you 2 guesses.
Not guilty.
One more guess.
Did you recognise?
Yes, Stephen Fry is obviously playing Charles I along the lines of Prince Charles, who himself is understood to be a fan of Blackadder.
Is he?
Yes.
How do we know that?
It was in a book I read.
Okay.
Apparently there's been performances on stage for the royal family of Blackadder type material by the cast, and Prince Charles is understood to be a fan of the show and the material.
So Charles is in a bit of bother, as we heard there as well.
It's not really got through to him, I don't think. I don't think he's maybe cottoned on that this is actually happening, but yes, he's to be executed.
Back in the kitchen, Blackadder is complaining to Baldric that he has chosen the wrong side in the only English civil war, and should the king die, their lifestyles will be compromised going forward.
Yeah, he's concerned that we're going to have a period of Puritanism. The theatres will be closed, and lace handkerchiefs for men will be banned, and prostitutes will be outlawed.
Furthermore, he tells Baldric they will be for the chop, but Baldric is quite happy about this.
He likes chops, and he's sure that something's going to pop up.
Not under Puritanism, I don't think.
No, as Blackadder wryly observes.
And we have a typical Blackadder dig at Baldric, who compares his brain to the 4-headed man-eating haddock fish beast from Aberdeen.
That's a true story.
Doesn't exist.
Oh, right, okay. It's not a true story. We fast forward slightly to January the 30th, the day of the execution of King Charles I.
Yes, and we are in the Tower of London again, where Blackadder tells the nervous king that the Roundheads have a final problem. They won't be able to find someone willing to behead him.
Charles disagrees, in a nod to what foreign listeners might not realise is the Prince of Wales scheme. Charles thinks there's plenty of young people who just need help to get started, and that's what his awards are all about.
Blackadder tells him to shut up, and he reiterates his belief that no executioner will be found, and wagers his dipstick tennis racket on it.
Then we get a comedy moment as a message is delivered, and Blackadder drops his orange, and it makes the sound of a tennis racket sort of boing as it bounces back to him.
We head back over to the kitchen, where Blackadder is distracted by Baldric's happy singing, and it's apparently because he's just found a job.
Yes, it's not that he's been bequeathed a turnip by his father. He's to be the executioner, which Blackadder suddenly realises with a A moment of horror.
Yes, but Baldric apparently has a cunning plan to save the king. Blackadder is not convinced and mentions Stumpy Oleg McNoleg, as we heard at the top of the show, before he outlines the problem with this ruse.
A pumpkin is going to save the king.
Ah, but over here, I have one that I prepared earlier. I will balance it on the king's head like this, then I will cover his real head with a cloak, and then, when I execute him, instead of cutting off his real head, I will cut off the pumpkin, and the king survives.
I'm not sure it's going to work, Baldric.
Why not?
Because once you've cut it off, you have to hold it up in front of the crowd and say, "This is the head of a traitor." At which point they will shout back, "No, it's not. It's a large pumpkin with a pathetic moustache."
I suppose it's not 100% convincing.
It's not 1% convincing. However, I'm a busy man and I can't be bothered to punch you at the moment. Here is my fist. Kindly run towards it as fast as you can.
Fortunately for Charles, Blackadder has an alternative plan. Once he realises the level of remuneration the executioner is to receive. He asks Baldric to explain to the king why Sir Edmund Blackadder cannot be with him on the day of his execution, and insists that he makes it a good one, once again perhaps relying a little too heavily on Baldric's intellect.
So we head over to the Tower of London, where we hear the end of the explanation from Baldric to the king, although we didn't hear what the actual excuse was itself.
Not at this stage, but the king seems to understand and be sympathetic.
At this point, Cromwell and the hooded executioner arrive, and Cromwell advises the king that he should be ready to meet his maker before Cromwell leaves.
Left alone with the executioner, the king laments that his good friend Lord Blackadder is not there because his wife's sister's puppy fell into a strawberry patch.
Ah, well, that's understandable.
The executioner tells the king a story about the last execution.
Yes, he's got a few kind words for him.
And then he asks for a tip.
A custom apparently adhered to by Sir Thomas More.
Absolutely. The tip is gradually increased to all the money that the king has, at which point Charles is delighted to find that Blackadder is the executioner and has a plan. Blackadder hasn't quite put all the pieces of this plan together, has he?
He's not, because it's 10 minutes later and we see the king being led away with a pumpkin on his head. He's no other. He hadn't any other plan.
No.
So
Baldric's plan has come to fruition, you might say.
Yeah.
With the pumpkin on his head, and Baldric's left behind in the Tower of London as the king is marched by his executioner out.
Yes, and he can hear what's going on.
He can
Upstairs,
and there's a throwback again to Potato here, where the exact thing that the crowd was predicted to say, they do say when the pumpkin is raised. At which point Blackadder is forced to execute the king.
Yeah. Sometime later, we're down in the kitchen, and as Blackadder cradles the infant prince, Baldric gives him some options, but it is he who ends up holding the baby.
Well, sir, they can't say you didn't try. Now the future of the British monarchy lies fast asleep in your arms in the person of this infant prince. And with the money you've earned, you and he can escape to France.
Oh, quite.
On the other hand, you can stay here, and as a known loyalist, the Roundheads will come and cut your head off.
Exactly, Baldric. Oh, my God.
Oh, no! We're surrounded! What will we do?
Well, at times like this, Baldric, there is no choice for a man of honour. He must stand and fight and die in defence of his future sovereign. Fortunately, I'm not a man of honour. Thank God you've come! Seize the royalist scum!
That clip had a great visual gag, which unfortunately the listeners will not have picked up on if they haven't watched this recently. But
Listen to what I just said before the clip.
Well, there's the baby part, but also Blackadder's costume change.
Yeah.
Where he strips off his outfit to reveal a round head.
Get up.
Yeah, I suppose that's the word you would use. Of course, the king didn't have an infant son when he was executed. His youngest child was 15 and his heir was I think 19 or 20.
I'm going to have to start fading you out again, Ian.
What do you mean fading me out?
No, nothing.
Okay. Did you enjoy this?
I did, Ian. I thought, considering it was a sketch for Red Nose Day, it could have been less well written, but some effort had been put into it, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it went pretty well. I think better than most of the rubbish that you see on these.
And there's no doubt a reason for that. It was filmed, as we mentioned, for Comic Relief. And Comic Relief, also known as Red Nose Day, was founded in 1985 by Richard Curtis and Lenny Henry. So the guys behind Comic Relief are the guys behind, or one of the guys behind.
I thought you were going to reveal Lenny Henry's secret role in the history of Blackadder there.
That'd have been different.
Yeah, well, he was doing Chef at that time. He was probably too busy. It was quite a good show.
Mm-hmm. Surprised, actually, he never made an appearance. He was part of the crowd, part of the scene back then.
Yeah.
No, and I thought it was well written. Could have been worse.
Absolutely could have. I quite enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the Prince Charles gag, maybe one line too many. The one about the award scheme was maybe just, you know, we got it, and then he could just have used the accent. But yeah, no, it's fine.
Mm-hmm. I think you also have to be careful as well. This was for a wider audience. So there'd been plenty of people watching this who...
not just Blackadder fans.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Maybe offering things for non-Blackadder fans as well. I think the Prince Charles reference might have just been for them.
I think that's fair.
Uh-huh.
It was quite clever, the way it was done as well, and well delivered.
Mm-hmm. It was delivered on the 4th of February 1988. Now, obviously, most of the stars we've spoke about before, including Warren Clarke, who played Cromwell.
It's a familiar face, isn't it?
Certainly is. IMDb, I think, are wrong.
Okay.
They have Hugh Laurie as one of the guards, one of the Cavaliers with Cromwell. Now, I paused this, I looked, and I don't think for a second it's Hugh Laurie. I think if Hugh Laurie was there, he'd been given a speaking part for a start.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people he didn't exist.
Convincing people Hugh Laurie didn't exist.
Oh, well, I'm trying to convince them he did exist.
Mm.
What the real question is, what was Hugh Laurie doing that night?
What are you insinuating?
I'm saying nothing. I'm just saying if he's trying to make people believe he was
are you saying
in the sketch, when in fact he was somewhere else altogether.
Or just a cold, heartless individual who doesn't care about charity. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe he was on the phones for Comic Relief, manning the telethon banks.
Sure. Do you have any other trivia non-Wikipedia related?
It's all history related.
Okay.
I mean, there's not much to have trivia about. It was a 15-minute sketch for Comic Relief.
Yeah, I've got something else.
On you go.
At the start there was a scroll.
Yep.
And a narrator.
Yep.
He was Harry Enfield.
There you go. Is that his only Blackadder involvement?
I think so, yeah.
You want to do his bio?
No.
Okay.
Next time we've got the first episode in Blackadder Goes Forth.
Heard of that.
Yeah.
And watched it many times.
Captain Cook.
That'll be good.
Mm-hmm. Favourite line this week?
Yes, it was the one when the king realises that the priest is actually Blackadder and he says this is perverted just like school.
Yeah. Mine's is when he said he couldn't be bothered to punch Baldric and made him run
into the fist. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, well, shorter episode this week because it was a shorter episode.
Absolutely, but there's still time for folk to get in touch with us. They can find us on the usual channels, blackadderpodcast.com, and the usual social media, Blackadder Pod on Facebook and Twitter, and come and say hi and speak to other Blackaddery. If
you've got any other trivia, now's the time to get it out.
Well, I thought this would be a good time to talk about the restoration of the monarchy, because obviously the interregnum came to an end with Charles II's ascension to the throne and the renewal of Britain as a constitutional monarchy.
Sorry about this, guys. We'll wrap things up here and we'll see you next time. Cheerio.
From 1660 until 1685, and his younger brother James II followed him.